You can just call the meeting board.
Okay, call the meeting to order.
Okay, next up is determination of a quorum. We don't really have a quorum of the membership, but we do have enough people here to conduct the meeting just for the discussion items. I don't recommend taking action, but under the Texas Open Meetings Act handbook, the Attorney General does specify that ex officio non-voting members do count towards quorum purposes, so I think we can go ahead and proceed with the meeting, just take no action.
Okay,
So next up, public comments, no one's here, then approval of the minutes. So you would just need a motion in a second for that.
okay, can I get a motion for the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, approved.
You just need to take a vote.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and I'll just table it till the next item,
Okay,
till the next meeting.
That was good.
You can go on.
okay, public hearings. There is no public.
It's way different from the city council meetings. It's way different from the city council.
Right, yeah.
Everyone's there. Everyone's here.
Mhm.
Okay, so with that, we can move on to number 6 then.
Yes,
Information or discussion items. We've got this is discuss fiscal year 2024 to 2025. And for the meeting schedule.
yep, so that's me. I just kind of included a tentative calendar for the year going forward. As you know, the park board does meet the second Wednesday of each month. Typically in December, that one might be one where y'all don't meet. It's up to you all. This is what I'm gonna compile to put forward to the city council for the board calendar, and the city council will officially approve it. So I just kind of wanted to throw it out there, get your thoughts, see if you see any issues or or if you have any amendments, because like I said, in December, it's really up to the board whether or not they want to meet. But this is just kind of what I tentatively put together. So if y'all have any thoughts on that.
I don't, everything looks fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Sounds good.
Okay, on to B, discuss watering at Centennial Park.
Yes, that one was one I had put on there, and there's just photos of Centennial Park. A resident in that area was asking, said everything was starting to look pretty dry. And was worried about maybe trees and just growth, that wanted to make sure, any of the trees weren't gonna die, so. We did have, the park supervisor responded back to that, didn't he, and Mr. Reason?
On that one, no, they responded to the one about the goat head. Let's see.
Oh, he said, I asked the plumber to make it work so we can water. Meanwhile, the bids get turned in to get it fixed completely. So I guess they're waiting on a part. It needs a new backflow valve and shut-off valve because they are old and leaking, but we have been watering it for the past 2 weeks.
Okay, and then this does also lead into the goat head issue as well, but we can get to that one once we hit topic C. So in terms of discussing the watering at Centennial, it seems that the supervisor states that it is being watered and there are some issues, but he's working on them, correct?
I believe so.
Okay,
No ETA on that though, right? So we're just waiting for a part.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay.
so it seems he's probably waiting on parts and bids from other plumbers.
You know, a good plumber? Alright, so
Okay, if does anybody else have anything to say about this? Item B? Okay, if not, then we'll go ahead and move on to item C. Discuss updates to the dog park and citizens' concerns with goat heads.
So that one, someone, resident had also taken their animals out there and said that the goat heads were a problem out there. Just to get that on the agenda. He said this year they're going to start early on hoeing them down once they start coming up. I think we haven't had a lot of rain, so we haven't had a lot of issues yet. Looking and asking around if you can find a safe way to possibly spray them with natural herbicides. So they're aware that it could become a problem, and it kind of looks like everything's, I guess I'll be ready for it if it does become a thing. Did y'all have any comments or anything on go ahead or even at other parks?
No, I don't, but it seems like. I guess. They are planning to start dealing with them a little bit earlier, but they're also waiting. They're kind of a sufficient amount. As I assume that simply seeing one wouldn't really validate sending everybody in to go clear one. And in terms of trying to look for natural herbicides, I'm glad to hear that.
I got the tough one though. They're pretty.
That would be to find something natural that'll work against it.
Yeah, they're pretty tough.
But also, I mean, trying to keep in mind that that is an area for pets, so.
Oh, cute dog.
Boiling water, maybe.
Okay, well, besides that, I think, are there any other? Anything else to say on the topic?
Not on my end.
Yellow? All right, well then we'll go ahead and move on to item D. Discuss and reconfigure Parks Board task list if needed, task list if needed.
Well, on that one, I guess if y'all had any status updates, it's been a month, I think, since we've met, 2 months, maybe, 3 months.
It's been a long.
Yeah, last time was February.
Gosh.
Okay, on my issue, I was dealing with the rental fees. I feel like what we'd come up with in terms of the Coconut Park Pavilion was pretty solid at the time. And then in terms of, I think in part of that, that also included the building right next door, the name losing me. The Civic Center. Looking at the Civic Center and the prices for that, I talked with Gio. He walked me through the place. And so my recommendation at the moment for that would be to leave the price the same. We kind of, we looked around and I made a list, a verbal list of some of the repairs that are needed for the area. And I guess really until some of those issues are taken care of, it wouldn't feel kind of fair to ask more from the public to pay more. Does anybody have anything to say about that?
You're the expert.
Well, that just falls more under rental, but you know, I mean, I think that sounds fair for the moment right now, though.
Question then, I guess, Megan, on, if Mr. Acosta had a list or anything of the, items that may need updates on there, is there a fund code for fixing things, like if there was a door or anything in that, or?
Yes, if you just want to email me the list, we can start doing work orders to get some things. Some
Okay,
of the stuff may be harder if you're looking at the electricity, because I know a lot of it happens.
yes, that's kind of the bigger point on that, and again, if there were some other things that could kind of be fixed quicker, then I could see going, hey, you know, maybe a bigger deposit here, not by that much more, or a little bit better on the fee, but I know some of those issues specifically with the electrical isn't something that can get remedied right away. And so again, I wouldn't like to ask. It didn't feel right to ask the public to pay more. And
Have less tax.
then they still not have any more that comes with that price. And then to tell them, why are we paying more? Well, one day that'll get fixed, and trust me, and you know, and then a lot of them are a lot older, so they're gonna be like, it hasn't been fixed. And so I'd like to make sure these issues get fixed before we can, you know, ask the public to pay more, deposit more even, just to make sure things stay repaired, but,
If you just want to give me that list, we can start knocking things out. We have a small budget this year,
okay,
but we're the budget process, so we can get something bigger for next year.
okay,
Just give me that list.
okay, no, sounds good. So then what I'll do is, next time when I get a chance, I'll, come by and, go through the Civic Center myself. And just make a list. I'll check all the outlets, check anything else, lights, and just start making a list of any of the things. And then a priority list of that list. That way we kind of see which ones need to get taken care of first. So, does that sound good? Perfect, then we'll do that. So, but for at the moment, I would say we leave the price as is. So,
What was that price, Gio? Do we know?
For the Civic Center, it's $500 for 8-hour rental. There are partial rentals available during the week between 8 and 5, like 4-hour rentals, but that's the only time those are available. There is also a government rate, I believe it's 200. But for the most used is 500 for a full day, and that would be on the weekend. Anything on the weekend would be 500 unless it's a nonprofit rate. And $200 deposit plus $60 per hour for 2 officers to provide security while alcohol is being served.
And that 500 also covers them being able to come in the day before and kind of set up, right?
Yeah, currently we've been allowing them to start decorating up to 2 days, as long as it's available.
and I think it kind of has been, hasn't it?
Yes, most times it is available, so they'll get the key Wednesday.
Yeah, so kind of right now it feels like a grace period where we don't have to be as strict. And again, it. Without providing more, it's kind of hard to justify locking things down and. And being more. Appropriate with the rules and things like that. So. Okay, so with that, who was working on park rules?
People that aren't here anymore.
Okay, so we'll have to figure out for that, for park rules. Ordinance review,
You're waiting on me for that, I apologize.
Oh,
okay, but at least you're here.
okay. That's what it was.
That's better. Okay, festivals and event permitting,
I
okay,
don't really have anything to discuss.
That's a big one. It would take a long.
Yeah,
and then we have reporting,
Yeah, is that still a thing, Megan? We are the. Does the council still want like quarterly reports from advisory boards?
Yes and no, I think as we went through chapter 23 review, it got a little mumbo jumbo. But because we have the ex officios on, was kind of thought they could be provided for the reporting. I think we just need to kind of work it out, but
That sounds easier, actually, just to have the ex officio do it. So basically, I would just report quarterly maybe to council.
Okay. okay,
But I think it, so when there is gonna be a recommendation to like the ordinance, once you guys put that into an action item, you approve it to move forward to council. One of you would need to be present at the council meeting to help provide some clarification why you cleaned it up and the change.
okay,
That makes sense.
And a perfect example of that, just to give you a clarification, was recently they updated the ordinance for animal euthanasia, from the Animal Advisory Board.
Mhm.
And council had a couple questions on that. And so they were wanting a representative from the board to come up, and that way, when council had those questions, they could talk to somebody that kind of knew what was going on.
okay, and it can only be one person that shows up, or it can be mixed? Okay, okay,
At least.
okay, no, that sounds good then, so,
It doesn't have stage.
yeah. So at the moment, in terms of ordinance review, we're waiting on you for that,
Yeah, because we sat down and we went through all of those and we made the changes.
yeah,
I just need to finish it on my side. I do apologize.
okay. In terms of park rules. Right now, I think with rental fees, we've kind of got that hammered out. Festivals and event permitting and park rules. I think. It might be best, it being only 3 of us here. That we probably all get, because it is, I had that one before you and I couldn't, there were things I was looking into, but it's a big
Yeah.
package. And I think it might be best if all 3 of us work on that item together.
Works for me.
And then we'll come together, we'll figure out in terms of festivals and event plan and event permitting. And try to break that into 3 parts. Okay. That way each one of us can take that, break it into 3 pieces, and then it's a lot easier to manage. Okay,
Suggestion.
yes,
If each one of you went home and Googled festival permitting in Texas City, and it came up with all the different cities who have that permitting process
Yes.
and printed it out, and then came back at your next meeting and discussed it, you would really see what other cities are doing.
Yeah.
And each one of you would probably find cities to be really strict or really vague.
Mhm.
And that might be easier to kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that one, when I was working on the topic, I can't remember which city it was. It was one of the ones before San Antonio. There's so many little towns that runs it, but, they had a river that runs right through like the middle of city. So they had a lot of, and so I looked them up. And as you said, some cities I noticed were kind of more asking, people who were planning events or festivals to come up with a plan themselves. Or some of these other towns that I looked into that were used to having regular festivals and events. What they did was they actually took the area that would be for rent. They would break it apart into sections, that way. Vendors and whatnot would then rent out certain spaces and it'd be clear for them. Which areas they would use up, that way there's not kind of a free for all, like whoever gets the first spot. Or shows up first gets that, and if you don't show up early enough, you get whatever's left, yeah. And it really just showed, some of them even had plot drawings of the park itself or the event area. And then they would just name it A, B, C, A1, A2, A2, like that.
And I would also take into consideration the big pushback a lot of us have seen. Is of course, we want people to utilize the park for festivities. But when they start bringing in like equipment and vehicles and they're tearing up the grass and the dirt, and so those are things to also think of when you're looking at permitting. What you want them to be able to do in the park, what you don't.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to be clear about. We're okay with a local family having a birthday party there. And maybe not having to rent the whole park for a small party. But then let's say that party turns into 50 people showing up and. All of a sudden a live band shows up, it's kind of like, well, you know, now you're kind of. Putting a lot of stress on the park itself. And I think we need to be able to provide something that kind of clearly. States maybe a line,
What's the best?
yes. What's just a local gathering or just a low, to the point where it's like, well. You've crossed the line, now you've got too many people here.
Or on park rules, you said y'all are gonna share that one? On park rules,
Uniform rules and guidelines are designed at city parks.
the number 2 item there, park rules.
2 and 3, yeah.
I think so, I think we might be best at just showing those two.
The reason I was gonna ask was, Megan, when we did the budget, did we earmark any money for park signage?
We did, but without the rules being approved, we don't wanna put the signs in, cause then if you change them.
Yeah.
So that might be, I always think it's important if you're on an advisory board, that you guys see that you're not just up here having meetings in perpetuity and nothing actually happens from it. It's always good to see something actually come about from that. So the, once y'all come up with the rules, and that might be a thing, did they work with Chris on that at all? Or Chris, would he do the design?
It depends on the direction we go with the signage. Several of the parks have that old wood kind of feel, where the wood is kind of graved with the painted. I think in the last discussions, everyone was on board with kind of the metal signage that had the wrap. And that way the wrap could be replaced if things change.
Yes.
That could be a Chris thing. Ideally, that would go back to the parks to decide. Well, we could definitely bring Chris Bridget in. I'm just leery of adding to his plate. We have a long list of things we'd like him to do. It's Chris Bridget, you don't know who I'm talking about, for tourism. He's a great designer. So I think that was ideally what we're looking for, the metal, and then it would have the vinyl. So that, everyone, and then they'll all be the same. So every park would have the same set of rules, same sign, and not, this park does one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the rules, is that something that ties in with ordinance review?
Part of it does. The part that we didn't really like, so the hours of operation, there's always do we do dusk till dawn to dusk, do we do 7 to 9? Do we do, a specific time period? first thing that was brought up with the dark sky, do we open it up for people to have dark sky events, which I think that would tie more to your festivity permitting.
Yeah.
Intent. For after hour usage, of course, no alcohol, which we also kind of updated more with no alcohol, no smoking, like no tobacco products. I can't remember, we kept going back and forth on that one. I can't remember the two others, there's two others, that were part of that as well.
Well, I think on terms of the tobacco, we were talking about chew and spit and like Zins and things like that, mainly because, but then I think we came to the realization, I was like, oh, that just falls under no littering.
That might be.
Oh,
Yeah, that it just falls under no littering, because then it's a big no-no.
So I think that, I think
No, because then that would also just shove people off the sidewalk as well.
so I think that was something, I don't know why I'm thinking of that. But I think it's been brought up at one. That would be something that would, motorized vehicle.
Yeah, just no motorized, you know,
Clean up after your pets.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yes, we were talking about putting cameras everywhere and. That's starting a surveillance state in the park, that's very much.
It's not really time for this, but- Well, on the park rules one, because we've got what, June, July, August, September. So really only 3 meetings, before the budget comes back in and we have our next budget. I was kind of thinking what might make sense on that park rule, so you guys kind of see something of what, see the end, game of what you guys are actually working on. What might be interesting is
A product.
a product, exactly, like painting a house.
Yeah.
And maybe go into each park, taking pictures of some of that signage, and then you would
Okay.
have documentation of the signage in each park currently to kind of see what we have as far as an inventory. And then Chris might be able to come back in, or y'all could research and see what options are in other parks, what's kind of out there. So you kind of know where we're at currently with our signage, what modern signage or what new park signage could be, because if there's money earmarked, what that might look like. And then maybe even the flexibility of it where there might be general rules, but then you may have a different rule for Coconut, because if, no golfing, and people may, no one's gonna try to golf in Medina Park, but they may try to golf in Coconut. So
Yeah.
somehow build that flexibility into it or something like that, but step one may be just kind of getting pictures and photographs and knowing where we're at with signage in the current park.
Yeah.
I think we can handle the pictures and
Mhm.
we'll go to all the parks. Do we have a list, an available list of all the parks we have? Just something I can pull up.
I can send that to you.
Okay, no, that sounds good. Then if y'all two can get together and take a picture
Just look around what signage.
of every, I go to every park and see what they have in terms of rules, signage that comes to that. So that way we can kind of compile something together. Cause I guess preferably if we had. If we could put one sign at every entrance to every park. If, then that would kind of just take care of everything. That way it's a uniform sign as well. And so that way if one's damaged, it's not like, well. We've got 3 printouts for Coconut, but we can't take them to Medina because they've got an extra set of rules too. And I think it might be more important to just hit. And make sure that the rules that are all commonplace are labeled there. And then if something needs to be added, we can always look into. Is that just an extra sign that needs to be added? Specifically there, like the no golfing, but. Then it kind of comes down to, is that sign needed? Does that need to be explicit? Is it a rampant issue?
Yeah, I tell you, like, once you guys know what you currently have and what the intention of the park is, because Medina has a very fantastic sign, that kind of concrete one that,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
really cool sign. Coconut doesn't have that, Baines, they have the entrance, but I don't know what the signage looks like, so.
Mhm.
Like you said, where the ingress egress is from the parks.
Yes.
Where signage might make sense, what signage is there, just kind of take notes, and then you can say like, 2 entrances to the park, neither one has signage.
Yeah.
And photographs, and that way y'all kind of know where you're at. Me personally, is the festivals and event permitting is a huge
Yeah.
thing. So you've got July, August, September, 3 more meetings. And so we may, as a group, might not even get through park rules
Yeah.
at that time, because 3 meetings, come and go, so.
So right now,
Signage.
so let's work on park rules together first. And compile that, so that way we can actually present that to the city council. Because if we get that done quick enough, then we can actually see the signs going up.
So we'll get those done before the next meeting.
Okay,
Yes.
sounds good. That'll work. And if we can get that taken care of, then from there, we can move on to festival and event permitting, and hopefully by that point, we can get some more people in here. We can break that up into 5 pieces instead of just 3.
And I think at that time too, because that was even when I was on Parks Board, so Geo could provide reference at that time when y'all have more members, because that's gonna be a huge one of what the intention was. Why that was brought up, because that was council before I was even on council over a year ago, so that's probably
Yeah,
1 to 2 years deep. And then when they expressed why they wanted that on there, then you guys can kind of know what you want to do.
Okay.
Are you talking about why the rules is on there?
The festivals and event permitting.
It's just because there's no structure. So right now, there's no formal process to approve an event. The only process is that it'll go to Megan and Megan says yes or no, the city manager. And it's always been like that. We wanted something that made it more formalized because we don't get anything. We have city employees coming in on their day off usually. Because it's a Saturday to help set up. Let's say, for example, 4th of July. That's usually a city holiday. They're coming in, working, putting everything together. And the city isn't recouping any costs whatsoever. So the idea was to implement rules to make sure that the park was protected. Possibly fees depending on the size of the event and how much effort we're having to put in. And just things like that, structure.
I could see that easily being split up,
yeah, and I think plus that, it'll actually let people know that it's something they can actually rent. Because I never thought that you could rent the park for an event,
Well, and then there's.
in terms of like a bigger,
There's safety as well, so at what point, if I have 50 people out there, what point should we know? You know what I mean? There should be a threshold that the city knows, so we could have police, in the area just patrolling. And I think in that proposed ordinance, we initially had added anything over 20 people. That was like the thought behind that is, at what point is it too much and should somebody be aware that there's that many people out there?
Yeah. That sounds good. Because I think where they play baseball and all that is all part of that as well, then, right?
Yeah, that has its own process as well, so I think that's a great point, there should definitely be exceptions for that. If any, because they have to go through a reservation process, but maybe that reservation process needs to be updated as well.
Okay. And is that something that goes to the city as well? Yes, okay.
So can y'all get all that figured out before the next meeting?
Yeah. But so for right now, I think just to be clear, where we're gonna work on park rules.
Mhm.
We'll get
Signage.
pictures of all the signage, find what the common place is. Figure out what isn't common between the parks, and is that something that can be standardized through a mall? And then can we just fit all that in a sign? Make sure that the list isn't too big where it's a billboard on it. Okay, I think that takes care of all the discussion items. I think now we can move on to action items.
Yeah, and I recommend just that one being tabled to the next meeting, just, when there's more voting membership present.
Okay,
Is it possible to have discussion on an action item with no action?
Sure, I don't see why not. Typically you do need a motion in a second to have the discussion though, but,
okay, could I get a,
yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna say that, just to make things, as legitimate as possible, I think it'd be better to have 4 actual voting board members present in order to actually take action.
okay.
So then don't discuss, because we don't have a forum to.
I think what it sounds like is that it's something we can discuss, but it might be better that we just table it and not discuss it until we get a 4th member in here. who can actually vote on it as well. That way they're not kind of left out of the loop either. And then it just feels, you know, I'd imagine if I was in that position, I'd feel pressurized to be like, well, I guess this is what we're doing and, you know, it's my first time here and so that might be worth, as Joe suggested, just table the item. Okay, so then moving on to from that, number 8, board member comments. Does anybody have anything to say? No?
The only thing I would say on board member comments is if, we have, I guess, how many seats are open? 2 or 3? 3. So if you guys know anyone that would be a good candidate to be on this board, just shoot it over to the council person. Either myself and I can forward it to the council person, or you can email your council person directly, that council person directly, and they can fill out an application to move forward.
It's 1, 4, and 6.
And those are matched to the ward? Okay, so, but the candidate doesn't have to be from the ward.
Well, and 6 is actually the mayor appointment.
Okay, so really, the only thing that matters, they can be from anywhere in the city, but the recommendation has to come from the council person of that ward or the mayor.
Oh, okay.
1, 4, and the mayor.
Well, we could find somebody that. And then just suggest it for the mayor, they might approve it, maybe not, but nonetheless, we need to find 3 other people to fit.
So therefore, if I'm moving to a different place, it's not right.
No, yeah, you can always have that seat. Because the only time y'all seats could ever not be handled is if a new council person comes in, they could replace your seat if they went to it.
Someone that's there. Yeah, okay.
And then as long as it's in the city limits, we might run into an issue if we move outside of city limits, depending on how many people on the board are inside and outside. Because there's a threshold, and there's only, I believe, 2 on this board that can be outside of city limits.
I think we're fine.
Okay. All right, I think that takes care of board member comments then. So then from there, we just move to adjourn or?
Yeah.
Okay. I move to adjourn. Does it, do I have to make?
Second, she seconded it, and
Yeah,
that's
second.
perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
I was gonna be.